On the coast of Northern Ireland, stone pillars rise from the earth in shapes so perfect they seem impossible. This is the Giant's Causeway. Irish archaeologists finally opened the Giant's Causeway's movable stone door, and what emerged left all the scientists present speechless, resigned, or refusing to speak publicly. A drone operator captured a 20-ton basalt slab opening from a cliff face that, according to 60 years of geological studies, was solid rock. It remained open for 11 seconds. Then, it sealed itself so cleanly that not a crack, a seam, or a mark remained. Just today we were told that tourists and National Trust rangers saw the legendary fin disappear into a magical opening in the Giant's Causeway's rock face. When archaeologists pointed ground-penetrating radar at that section of the cliff the next morning, what they found inside left the lead researcher stunned for almost 2 minutes. She made no note of it. He didn't change any settings, he just stared at the screen. What the radar detected inside that sealed volcanic rock is the reason a formal research paper was suppressed. The monitoring equipment was quietly removed, and something that remained locked in that cliff for 60 million years is no longer there. The man who started it all, the protagonist of this story, isn't a scientist. He's Kieran Doyle, a 34-year-old electrician from Dublin. One Tuesday afternoon last autumn, Doyle drove north from the city because the weather forecast promised clear skies and calm seas. He wanted a panoramic video of the Antrim coast for his Instagram. He'd done it dozens of times. He'd fly the drone over the cliffs, record a few minutes, post the best shot, and head home. This is one of Northern Ireland's most remarkable and popular locations, a place steeped in science and mythology. Every year, thousands of people flock to see the Giant's Causeway, the first UNESCO World Heritage Site on the Emerald Isle. He wasn't looking for legends. He wasn't looking for anything unusual. But what his drone recorded that night would become one of the most analyzed amateur videos in recent times. The video shows a section of the basalt cliff moving, not crumbling, not sliding, but moving. A slab roughly the size of a van, some 20 tons of solid volcanic rock, slowly opens like a door on its hinges. Behind it, total darkness. The movement was smooth, deliberate, almost mechanical. Exactly 11 seconds. Then, the stone returned to its original position with surgical precision. No cracks, no gaps, no fissures. If you had walked past that cliff a minute later, you would never have realized anything had happened. Doyle almost didn't post the video. He thought his drone had malfunctioned, or that the light was playing tricks on him. He watched it 6 more times on his phone, and each time he could see the shadows moving behind the slab. The video was recorded, and as you've probably already seen in those fantastic images, the door opened. Something was open back there. He uploaded it that same night. In the morning, his phone wouldn't stop ringing. Geologists, journalists, university researchers, all demanding the same answer. Was it real or fake? And the most surprising thing is that one of those calls was from Dr. Sarah Brennan, the scientist who couldn't take her eyes off it. Dr. Sarah Brennan is a senior geologist at Queen's University Belfast and has studied the basalt formations of Antrim for more than 15 years. She has published dozens of articles on volcanic rock structures in the North Atlantic. She's not someone who gets carried away by viral videos. When her colleagues sent her the video, she almost dismissed it outright. Then she watched it a second time, and then a third. He called Doyle directly and told him bluntly that either his recording violated every known rule of geology, or it was the most sophisticated hoax he had ever seen. The next day he drove to the site. For those unfamiliar with it, the Giant's Causeway is a stretch of coastline in Northern Ireland made up of approximately 40,000 interlocking hexagonal basalt columns, the result of a volcanic eruption some 60 million years ago. When lava at over 1,090 degrees Celsius cooled, it formed geometric pillars of astonishing perfection. Local legend says that a giant named Finn McCool built them as a bridge to Scotland. It's a nice story. What was actually hidden inside was something else entirely. Here's the trick. In all those geological studies and land scans, no one had ever detected a single hollow space within these cliffs. No ancient text mentioned a hidden chamber. No legend suggested it. Dr. Brennan herself had scanned sections of that coastline dozens of times throughout her career and found nothing but solid rock each time, until Kieran Doyle's drone captured it on camera. As children, we were told that they were formed by a giant who joined all those rocks together. But when you discover the real story, I think it's one of the most fascinating aspects of Northern Ireland's geology. If you want to follow this story as it unfolds, because it's still developing, subscribe and turn on notifications right now. The evidence that hasn't yet been made public is what changes everything. What the radar found. Dr. Brennan arrived at the coordinates from Doyle's images early the next morning. The weather was gray. The wind was cutting across from the Atlantic. She set up her ground-penetrating radar, calibrated the sensors, pointed the antenna at the cliff face, and began scanning. What appeared on her screen left her speechless. Her field assistant later commented that she thought the equipment had malfunctioned. It simply wasn't reacting, taking notes, or adjusting the settings. She stood there, staring at the screen for almost 2 minutes without saying a word. This is what the radar showed, or what the data appeared to show, according to accounts that have yet to be verified by any independent body. A huge, hollow chamber hidden within what all geologists had always assumed to be completely solid basalt, 3 meters deep and 8 meters wide. A sealed chamber behind volcanic rock with no entrance or exit, undetectable by any instrument. That alone should have been impossible. But what the scan revealed inside that chamber made the chamber seem like a mere anecdote. 7 tall figures stand upright in the darkness, each between 2 and 2 meters high, arranged in a precise formation, separated by exactly 1 meter, all facing the stone doorway, not scattered randomly or toppled over, but in rows pointing towards the exit. Now here's the thing. Basalt doesn't form around upright objects. It's solidified lava, not sedimentary rock which accumulates over time. The only way those figures could be inside that rock is if they were already in position when the lava was still liquid, still burning at over 2,000 degrees Celsius, sealed there since the eruption that created the Giant's Causeway 60 million years ago. This phenomenon created the Giant's Causeway 60 million years ago. It's a process that's still ongoing. In Iceland, the same processes that created the Giant's Causeway are unfolding today. Humans wouldn't exist for another 59 million years. Whatever they were, those 7 things were there, lined up, before any human being ever walked this planet. The next morning, a geophysicist named Dr. Ian Gallagher arrived from Belfast with more advanced scanning equipment. Gallagher specializes in subsurface imaging, analyzing what lies buried beneath rock, soil, and the seabed. He has mapped underground river systems across northern Europe and worked on deep crust studies for the Irish government, a methodical, quiet professional. The quietness of someone who has analyzed subterranean images for decades without ever being surprised. 20 minutes later, his hands were shaking so badly that he had to put the tablet down on a rock and walk away. He paced in circles for a minute, rubbing the back of his neck before turning back and looking at the screen again. But here's what no one expected. The higher resolution scan revealed that the 7 figures weren't solid stone. They were thin, hollow shells, outer coverings with empty, cocoon-like interiors. It seemed as if something had been alive inside each one, or perhaps still was. The shell material was impossible to identify. Whatever it was made of, it shouldn't have survived contact with molten lava. Nothing organic withstands those temperatures. Nothing synthetic either, not during that time, since the pressure didn't decrease. Yet there they were, intact and structurally sound, sealed inside a rock that had been liquid fire when the dinosaurs were still going extinct. The cover-up. In less than 48 hours, government agencies were discreetly notified. Encrypted emails, closed-door meetings. The site Dr. Merrigan's war Brennan had studied her entire career was about to be taken from her. A team from the Environmental Agency arrived and issued a statement almost immediately. The drone images were an optical illusion caused by light reflecting off the wet basalt. There was no camera. No anomalies were detected. The area was in perfect condition. But the strange thing is that her own lead consultant, Dr. Brennan, refused to sign the report. She read the draft twice and then returned it without even picking up a pen. Silence fell over the room. No one protested. No one moved the paper. She stood up, gathered her notes, and left. Her colleagues at the site say she returned to her laptop. For the last time, she opened the raw sonar data, stared at it before closing the screen, and went completely pale. The following week, she submitted a 4-sentence resignation letter. The last sentence read, "I've seen enough." 3 words. That was her entire scientific conclusion after 15 years of studying that coastline. No explanation, just, "I've seen enough." And the worst part is that the agency acted swiftly. Heavy steel barriers and bright yellow warning signs were installed around the entire section of the cliff. Official reason? Coastal erosion, danger of rockfall. Plain and boring. But everyone who had seen those scans knew exactly why that section of the cliff was suddenly off-limits. What happened next confirmed it. Before the team was formally ordered to leave, Dr. Brennan returned to the site one last time. 4 days after the original scan, he expected everything to look identical. He hoped it would. He wanted to believe the first scan had been a glitch, something that would dissolve with a second look. When the new image loaded on his screen, he gripped the edge of the equipment case to keep from falling. One of the figures was gone. Only 6 remained. The stone doorway hadn't been opened even once. Kieran Doyle set up a motion-activated camera pointing directly at the rock face the day after his original recording. It ran 24/7 for 4 days. Outside, no movement, not a tremor, not a vibration. The doorway remained sealed the entire time. Yet inside that sealed chamber, what the researchers described as a 6-foot-tall figure had simply vanished. No dust, no debris, no cracks, no tunnels, no trace whatsoever. As if it had passed through solid rock and vanished. And the most surprising thing is that the remaining 6 didn't react. They didn't scatter, they didn't change position, they didn't move away from where the 7th had been. They simply remained there in the darkness, staring at the door. As if the 7th's departure was expected. As if it were simply the first to leave. They are warm and have heartbeats. Dr. Niamh Callahan, a thermography specialist at University College Dublin, was hired to search for sources of volcanic heat or underground water. She had conducted this type of study dozens of times at geothermal sites in Iceland and the Azores. She expected to find a hot spring, a magma chamber, or perhaps an underground water channel. Something boring, something explainable. It was a frigid March morning, air temperature 4 degrees Celsius. The cliff rock was just as cold, typical conditions for the Irish coast. Then she pointed her thermal camera at the camera's location. The screen flooded with orange and red. Here's the thing. Inside the sealed room, what the thermal data seemed to show was that the remaining 6 figures radiated heat at 99 degrees Fahrenheit. That's nowhere near human body temperature. That is human body temperature. The exact internal reading of a healthy, living person. There is no mechanism in geology or thermodynamics that explains how something can stay that hot inside a cold rock for an extended period. A century. Let alone millions of years. Heat always dissipates, radiates outward, and vanishes. That's a fundamental law of physics, not a theory. Sealed inside the icy basalt, surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean's air, anything hot should have reached equilibrium with the surrounding rock in days, not millions of years. Days. Callahan recalibrated his equipment, changed the batteries, repositioned the camera, and performed the scan from 3 different angles, each time a steady and unmistakable 99 degrees. He borrowed a second thermal unit from Gallagher's team. The result was the same. He returned to his colleagues and asked them very seriously if they were playing a joke on him. Seeing their pale faces, their lips pressed tightly together and no trace of laughter, he realized they weren't. He packed his equipment in the car without another word and didn't answer any emails or phone calls for 3 weeks. When he finally replied, it was a single line. "I need more time to process what I saw." But this is unexpected. The team had also installed vibration sensors along the rock face. What those sensors picked up is the most unsettling detail of the entire story. A rhythmic pulse that repeated every 4 seconds, constant and steady, without variation. A senior researcher, choosing his words carefully, publicly admitted that the pattern was indistinguishable from a slow heartbeat. The thermal readings weren't stable either. They would rise above 100 degrees without any external trigger, only to drop back down to 99. The fluctuations didn't correspond to weather patterns or any known geological cycle. The team ran correlations with barometric pressure, lunar phases, and seismic activity in the North Atlantic. Nothing matched. The heat behaved autonomously, as if whatever was generating it was responding to something internal, not external. Something alive. They head toward the door. Every 72 hours, the team performed another scan. Each time, the situation worsened. The 6 remaining figures shifted positions. Not drastically, just a few centimeters at a time, barely perceptible between individual scans, but consistently and directionally, always in the same direction. They no longer maintained that precise military formation. They had regrouped and were advancing slowly toward the sealed stone door, slowly and deliberately, as if waking from a long sleep and deciding it was time to leave. The researchers overlaid the positional data from each 72-hour scan onto a single composite image. When they saw the trajectory, 6 data points in a clear, uninterrupted path toward the exit, no one in the room said anything for a long time. Think about what that means. These things have been encased in volcanic rock since before mammals existed. They've outlived every species, every civilization, every empire that rose and fell above them. For tens of millions of years, they didn't move, patiently still, waiting. And now, right now in our lifetime, they're heading for the door. And look, more than 1 million tourists visit the Giant's Causeway every year. Families walk on those black stones with their kids, take selfies, listen to the guides, talk about Finn McCool. Little do they know that just 39 feet behind the rock, 6 entities are radiating body heat into the cold stone and slowly moving toward a door that's already been opened once. The attempt to go public. Dr. Brennan, despite her resignation, tried to go public. She spent months compiling thermal data, heartbeat patterns, position changes, and analyzing the shell's composition. She wrote a formal paper. She had it peer-reviewed by 2 trusted colleagues who confirmed her methodology was sound and submitted it to the Geological Review Board of Ireland. The board rejected it. Faulty equipment, flawed methodology, insufficient evidence. Case closed. Here's the catch. A colleague from that board contacted her privately afterward, off the record, burner phone. He told her the real reason had nothing to do with her science. If the public knew that biological thermal signatures and rhythmic pulses had been detected within ancient basalt, everything we think we know about the history of life on Earth would crumble. All the textbooks would be rewritten, all the timelines would be shattered. All the assumptions about when intelligence first appeared on this planet would be thrown out. Clearly, keep quiet, or your careers are over. No publications, no interviews, no social media, nothing. But they couldn't destroy it all, the evidence that survived. Kieran Doyle still has the original drone footage on 3 separate hard drives located in different places around Dublin. He checks them weekly to make sure the files haven't been corrupted or remotely deleted. He told a close friend that he now sleeps differently, lighter, more alert, as if something moved the night he saw that stone move and never returned to its place. The researchers who worked at the site, Brennan Gallagher Callahan and at least 2 others, kept personal copies of everything: sonar data, thermal logs, vibration recordings, position scans, and time-stamped photographs of every equipment reading. Everything is on encrypted disks that no agency can access without a warrant. The last scan, before the team was removed, showed the 6 figures still moving, still pulsing, still warm. The one closest to the door was only a few feet from the stone entrance. Its heart rate was noticeably stronger than the previous week. Stronger and stronger, faster and faster, as if it could sense how close it was to the exit. But the question that keeps all these researchers up at night isn't about the 6 still inside. It's about the one that's already gone. When they first inspected the chamber, they found 7 figures. Now there are only 6. One has disappeared. It didn't pass through the stone, didn't open the door, didn't leave a tunnel, a crack, a scratch, or even a single speck of dust displaced. It simply wasn't there anymore. Somewhere beneath the drifting Atlantic, through cave systems under the Irish seabed, hidden in an unexplored cavern along the coast, buried within another cliff no one has thought to scan, or somewhere else entirely. Beneath a city inside a mountain, moving through spaces we've never thought to look at. The remaining 6 were unfazed when the 7th disappeared. They didn't scatter, nor did they regroup. They simply kept moving toward the door, patiently, steadily, as if the departure were expected, as if it were simply the first to leave, as if they were all waiting their turn. We've spent our entire existence believing we were the first intelligent beings to walk this planet. These numbers say otherwise. Something was here long before us, sealed in stone and radiating heat, pulsing with a rhythm that sounds exactly like a heartbeat, waiting inside that rock as every civilization we've built rose and fell on the surface above it. Doctor. Brennan recently shared something off the record with one of the few people he still trusts. We treat ancient history as something dead, something we dig up and put behind glass. But what if it isn't dead? What if it's only been dormant? What if it's finally waking up? Right now, 6 figures stand before a stone doorway inside the cliffs of the Giant's Causeway. Their heartbeats are getting stronger. Their heat signatures are rising. They're inches from the exit. And the 7th is already out there, moving through a world they don't even know exists. Do you think those 6 people are still behind that door? Or have more already emerged? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you want to be notified as soon as new evidence emerges about this story, subscribe and turn on notifications because this isn't over yet.